So my name is Vida. A fun fact is that my grandfather was a chief back home in Ghana, so that meant he could have multiple wives. So he had 6 wives and had a total of 42 children, and they all lived in one house. A safe space is a place where you can be yourself. You don't have to hide, who you really are. You don't have to hide your emotions or how you're really feeling about a situation. You can be authentically yourself. So that's what it means to me. So the role I was in, I was a junior lawyer. The industry was legal. And a typical day would be so me coming into work, setting up my laptop and whatnot. It all depending on what I was doing at the time. So if I'm working on a deal, as a junior lawyer, you'll tend to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting, so due diligence was something you'll tend to do, which basically means reading through a whole load of documents. So I would have to come in, see if there's any new documents loaded onto the data room that we're looking at, read through the documents and pick out what's important. And then things would happen as a result of that. So that would be a typical day for a junior lawyer. So the challenge was when I started in my legal career. What happens is, as a lawyer, you have to train for 2 years and you do 4 rotations for 6 months each time. So you're doing different departments for 6 months each. And so I made it quite clear when I was in my 3rd department that I really wanted to qualify into that department because I really liked the work that they did. So what I did was, I did all the usual stuff you would do. I'll talk to the senior management in the team. I spoke to other people, other lawyers, all the coffees and stuff that you would expect to do. I did all of that. I made it really clear that I wanted to be in that department. But unfortunately for me, when I was actually training in that department, we had the Brexit vote happen. And so that had a really big effect on like the workload, and a lot of the deals dried up. But I spoke to the head of the department who I was sitting with and said, look, this is something that's out of my control. Is it possible that you can still consider me to qualify into this department? Because, I probably wouldn't have as much work to do as somebody else, but, this is beyond our control. To which he said, it's fine, don't worry, we'll consider you, we'll take it all into consideration. He didn't say you've got the job because you can't really say that, but he said, we'll just take that into consideration. So I said, yeah, cool. My final 6 months in that 2-year rotation was me going abroad. So I went to Singapore and had a great time. But because I knew I wasn't really in London, I again did all the emails, virtual calls, all that kind of stuff, just to let them know that I'm still really keen to come back to London and do the work that I wanted to do. So around the time of qualification, I managed to get into the department. But 2 other people also qualified, a white male and a white female. The white male didn't really want to qualify into that team. In fact, whilst we were both in that team training, they did a very different kind of work at times. So they would often leave the work that we were meant to be doing and do other work for another department that they really wanted to qualify in. So that was a bit questionable. The white female made it clear she wanted to be in that department. So fair enough, she got in. So between qualifying, so when I got back from Singapore and starting my qualification role, I had 3 months off. So in that 3 months, just live your best life, you have a good time. But the Friday before I was meant to start, I got a call from the head of the department saying, okay, so we know when you trained, there wasn't a lot of work on. Things haven't really changed much since then. So what we're going to do is we've got 3 of you qualifying, but we're going to put you in another department just for now. To which, when he said the department, I had no idea what that meant. I hadn't trained in that department. I hadn't studied that kind of law, but I didn't say anything. I literally just said, okay, thank you very much. And was still very grateful for the opportunity and didn't question anything, which I later regretted. But because I had no idea what the department was, I had 3 months of not doing much, but I now had 2 days to, in effect, come up to speed of what that department did. So one thing he also said was, this new department we're putting you in, you're going to sit with a manager who is really nice to work with, you'll have a really good time. So I said, okay, cool. Monday came round and we started as a qualified lawyer, and soon after that, I realised, so in the nature of the work that we do, visibility is really important. The white female who qualified, she had been sat like quite close to the department that we're meant to be in, but not fully in the department. I, on the other hand, was like all the way down the hall somewhere, like nobody could see me, no one could like find me at times. But the white male who didn't want to qualify was sat right in the middle of the department, and with a senior manager who focused like on that kind of work and was very well respected in that space. So I thought that was a bit strange, but I didn't question anything. I later also realised that because I wasn't really visible, finding work in the department that I was actually meant to be in was really hard. And so that meant that I was forced to do this other work that I had no idea what it was, but I'm now qualified, so you're expected to know what's going on, but I had no idea what I was meant to be doing. This senior manager, who was meant to be a lovely person to work with, I also soon found out wasn't particularly a nice person. And he would do things which to some people wasn't a really big deal, but to me it was. So I'll give an example. He would keep the room really, really cold. Now, to someone that's not an issue, but for me, I struggle with extreme temperatures like that. I actually can potentially have breathing problems if the room is extremely cold. I made it known to him, he just wasn't really budging, the room would have to stay super cold. It was cold to the point where if somebody walked past the room, you're just walking past, they will actually turn back and be like, oh my God, this room is extremely cold. And I'm thinking, can you say that when he's around, please? So he knows I'm not being extra or anything. So anyway, that whole situation and not being visible and like having to hustle in effect for work all became like a bit much, but I tried to like push through. In fact, I think because of that, my experience at the beginning of qualifying, I think within the first week or two, I actually thought I don't want to be in this industry anymore. I don't think I want to be a lawyer anymore, but I still kept pushing through trying to get work. I managed to move from that office and move into a place that was a bit closer to the team I was meant to be in, because a senior manager who was a female ethnic minority senior manager took pity on me in a way, and identified with my situation and would give me work so that I could, in effect say I'm too busy to do, this other work. I'm doing the work I'm meant to be doing. I hope that makes sense. Another senior manager who was actually a black woman also kind of took pity on me. In fact, I don't like the word take pity. They kind of sympathised with my situation. They sympathised with the situation and thought, this girl's not being given an opportunity to work hard, because I'm not here because I don't want to work hard. I'm here because I actually want to work hard, but I'm not being given the opportunity to. So yeah, they managed to give me work, and then I managed to eventually move from that office because I'd heard there was room moves going on. And I strategically told one of the senior managers, look, like I'm really struggling in this room. In fact, I didn't say that. I was quite cautious not to make it personal to the manager I was sitting with, because I didn't want it to seem like I was making a big deal out of something. So I actually said, you know what, I'm doing more work for these people who sit here. So is it possible that I can move to this other office? And luckily I managed to move. But even when I moved, it was about 3, 4, maybe 5 months since I'd qualified. And so in a way, like I said, 3 of us qualified together. Everyone had kind of decided who the juniors they wanted to work with, and I wasn't really around. So people, I was now in the team, but people were like, oh, she's here. Okay, what do we do with her, kind of thing. So it was an uphill battle, trying to get more work, trying to get more experience. And as lawyers who watch this will know, or even in any profession, like you learn and you grow through doing. I wasn't being given that opportunity. So a whole load of things happened in between the time that I moved offices to eventually leaving that place. But yeah, it was just an uphill battle. And I thought, you know what, I think I want to leave because I don't like law in this way, in the way that they operate in this place. The environment's a bit too hostile. So I eventually left to a very different kind of environment, still a law firm. I would say a nicer environment. Really enjoyed my time there. But through, self-reflection and whatnot, realised, okay, law in this way is not what I want to do. So moved to a company to practice law there and really enjoy it. So that's my long story. Apologies for how long it took, but that's basically the situation. So when I qualified, I was really excited, really happy. I felt like, I've worked so hard and this is what I've worked hard for. But within a week or two, like I said, it was almost like an anticlimax. I've managed to get to this place and now it's like, you're expected to perform, but you can't. So my confidence took a battering, to say the least, because not only was I not getting the work, so I wasn't being able to, hone in on my skills, but it became almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you're not getting the work, so you're not becoming confident in that work. And then people don't give you work because you're not around or they don't think you're good, and then your confidence goes down again. So that's how I felt then. When I was placed in a new department, I think that was more confusion, like why me? Why did you choose to put me in this place? One thing I left out actually, which is I think is quite important, is when I was called by the senior person before I started the qualification role, he said, we're going to put you here because a lot of people in our team don't really know you. And so if you put you in this other team, then you can build up your work and your skill and get to know people. And I thought to myself, that's a bit strange. But I didn't say anything to him. But I thought it's strange because I think I alluded to when I was telling the story, because there wasn't a lot of work going on at the time that I was training there, I made an effort to actually get to know people. And in fact, I did things to show how much value I can add to the team, even if it wasn't work related. So I put on events, for example, that were very well received, that had a lot of clients come to, just to show I can add value. So to go from that to, people don't really know you, it's like, what do you mean people don't know me? I don't really understand that, but people seem to know the two other colleagues. So yeah, I felt despair, I felt confusion, I felt a little bit angry of myself that, you didn't do enough for people to know you. So yeah, that's how I felt. So the two women that I refer to, the ethnic minority women I refer to, one I got to know whilst I was training. So she was quite a prominent figure in the department. And I don't know why, she just took a liking to me from when I was training. I think also when I came back as a qualified lawyer, she took even more of a liking to me because, like I said, she sympathised with my situation. But the specific reason why she sympathised with my situation is because when she was training, she also wasn't given the opportunities to work hard and to hone in on her skills. Because I think she trained during the time when we had a crash, like a financial crash. So she could see, okay, this girl's going through a similar thing, let me give her that work. So that's how I got to know her. The other was actually a black female who I had known from even before I joined the firm and had helped me to actually get to that point. So I think she took a liking to me just because she knew me from before and she knew, I am actually a hardworking person. And so, to be sitting idle in an office is not by choice, it's because I'm not being given the opportunity. So that's how I got to know those two individuals. So specific to this situation, the advice I'd give to somebody is ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask, questions. I think at the time when I had the phone call to say, you're going to be sat in another department, I didn't ask any questions. I didn't even ask, what is this kind of law? Because I felt I should know it. But even the term he used to reference the kind of law, like it's not a term that's used in the UK. So I had every right to ask, what is this kind of law? I would have asked, how long are you proposing that I stay in this department for? Because in effect, I've not qualified into that department. I have no idea what that kind of law is, how that law operates. I would have asked, how long are you proposing that I stay there? Why have you chosen that I stay there? And can you guarantee that despite the fact that I'm sitting so far from the main team, will I still get work from the main team? How can you guarantee that? So those are the kind of questions I would ask.
Hi, I'm WIWIK and I'm a life and confidence coach for millennial women. What's left when you've done all the right things, said all the right things, and it still isn't enough? This question was at the forefront of my mind when I listened to Vida's story. I can imagine that many women who are in the same position as Vida or are listening to her story identify with her. Her sense of despair, low confidence, you might even feel angry. And I want to start by saying it is not your fault. Don't blame yourself. You shouldn't have to bear the burden of fixing this problem, but I'm here to help you take back control when you feel powerless. The Race at Work 2018 survey highlights that Black, Asian, and minority ethnic people are ambitious, yet there is a lack of opportunity, and not necessarily a desire for those opportunities that isn't being fulfilled. And we see this come across so clearly in Vida's story. This is a waste of talent, energy, enthusiasm, and expertise. And the same survey also tells us that progression is important to BAME employees, with 70% of them saying that progression is important, compared to 42% of white employees. And according to Chambers student, even in 2020, the representation of ethnic minorities in the legal profession across major international firms is lower than the general population of the UK. Vida embarked on her legal career with determination and enthusiasm to make partner and become like Jessica Pearson from Suits. And I remember similarly not so long ago having the same ambitions, but alas, my career took a different turn. I want to highlight an additional struggle that Black women in the world of work have, and it's an inferiority complex that you may not even realize you have. As Black women in the world of work, we can find ourselves getting caught up with trying to fit into a particular mold that's more palatable and subservient. We find ourselves fighting and hustling to be seen, recognized, and valued, fighting against stereotypes, bias, conscious or unconscious, and deep-rooted beliefs about our capability because of the color of our skin. And I haven't even touched on the battles that we face internally because of our own insecurities. So how can you take back control when you feel powerless? I want to give you 3 key options, and I'm going to expand on each one of them. Firstly, it begins with learning to manage your mind. Now, this is not the same as saying it's all in your head. It's becoming aware of what you think about and choosing what you want to think about on purpose. The foundational tool I use to help my clients is called the self-coaching model. And it's not something I invented, it's based on universal truths. But the format I'm going to share with you was created by Brooke Castillo. Let me break it down. We experience circumstances or facts in our lives. And this can be something said or done by somebody else, something you've said or done, or something that happened in the past. And when those circumstances happen, they trigger a thought. So we have a thought about the circumstance that took place. And when we have a thought, it causes us to have a feeling. And that feeling then creates an action, something that we do or don't do. And as a result of that, we can then see the outcome of things in our lives. The circumstance in Vida's case is that the head of department made a decision about Vida's post-qualification placement. Now, Vida had a thought about this, and it's important to see that she had a thought about this. And she thought, I should just be happy they've decided to keep me here. Now, it's important to note that this was Vida's thought. Someone else could have this same experience and not have the same thought. And when she had this thought that I should just be happy they've decided to keep me here, she told me that she felt subservient. So what did Vida do or not do when she felt subservient? She didn't ask the head of department any questions. She didn't complain. She just got on with it. She went about hustling for work, and she even took on additional responsibilities. And so when we look at the overall result of Vida's model, no matter what I do, I'm not happy here. So we see an overall result that even if Vida is doing all the right things, taking on additional responsibilities, she's still not happy at work. When we look at this model, we see that the only things that Vida can change are her thoughts, her feelings, and actions, and overall result. She cannot go back and change the decision that her head of department made. And sometimes people think, you know what, I'll change the circumstance so I can feel better. Sometimes it works, most times it doesn't. And even when you do it, you feel exhausted and you wonder whether it was even worth it in the first place. From this position of clarity, Vida can be empowered to decide, does this way of thinking serve me? Do I want to continue to think in this way? The ball is in her court and she gets to decide what she wants to make this mean, and so can you. Managing your mind helps you see clearly, so you can decide how you want to feel and what steps you want to take. This takes practice because we've already been conditioned to think in a certain way, and some of us have even been raised to blame others for anything that goes wrong in our lives. If you want to make a decision about whether to stay or leave, the best place to do this is from a place of power rather than low confidence or subservience. From this place of power, you can decide, what am I willing to take? Do I want to take it? Is this situation below the standards I want to have for myself? And whether you decide to stay or leave, ask yourself, am I happy with my reasons? Whatever you decide, back yourself. Let it be your choice and no one else's. Vida decided to stay because she had a strong enough why that she believed in. And as soon as that was fulfilled, she left. The self-coaching model doesn't make it okay that this has happened to you. It helps you acknowledge that it has happened. And it helps you take ownership of what you want to think about it so you can decide what you want to do on purpose. The next tool I want to offer you is to allow and process your emotions. Vida felt a lot of emotions throughout her experience. She felt despair, low, self-doubt. She had clouds over her. She described it to me like, I felt like a shadow of myself. Yet she showed up at work like she was happy and without weakness. You know, she couldn't be her authentic self. As Black women, we are raised to be strong. It is our defining feature. We are even loved because we are strong. But what a heavy burden to bear, to always have to be strong. You were created with emotions. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and feel. That is power. Acknowledge the way you feel about a situation and recognize that your feelings come from the thoughts that you are thinking about that situation. Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to feel emotion because we feel like if we give in, we'll never come out. But our feelings pass through. And you see, what keeps them alive is continuing to think the thought that creates the emotion that makes us spin.